by that I mean those supporters, those allies who are accepting and will use the correct pronouns, use your chosen name, and be positive and ask how you're going. But also those who are completely oblivious to the wider experience, the reality, and potentially the social factors that have made it difficult for you, particularly growing up and being able to really accept yourself. So unfortunately, while my family and friends are all really supportive, which is fantastic and very lucky for me, and definitely not the experience of a lot of trans women out there, there's still really frustrating moments in conversation where it's really quite clear that they perhaps never can understand, but potentially that they're not willing to learn. And that willingness to learn is, I think, the most frustrating thing. For instance, I've had some people with that blanket assumption, everything's great for you guys now. You're all accepted, you're able to live your life, you're able to be who you want to be, you've come out and you're not getting abused at work. It's like, wow, thanks for the bare minimum. I can actually work and not get discriminated against. Much. Great. Oh, by the way, you still have to go through all these legal hoops to change your name. You've got to go through all these medical hoops to get treatment that will make you actually feel good about yourself, and the proper care for what's going on in your head. You also have these constant situations where you've just got to continually come out and sort of explain yourself. You've got these questions of, why didn't you come to this sooner? And all this nonsense where it's sort of like, yes, things are great for me. I still have to explain myself every single day. Yes, we've come a long way, particularly in Australia, which is thankful. I am able to live my life, but it's not without its complication or its hardship. And realistically, as a basic human right, we should have been able to do that anyway. And in a lot of places around the world, we can't. A lot of places that is continually under threat, particularly at the moment with legislation in the UK and the US and the political noise in both these places, let alone what's filtering into the Australian media thanks to Sky News. This is constant, where if not directly aware of it and engaging with it as political activists, we at least know it's there and it impacts us as a result. Now, second to that is this sort of like, I don't understand why you couldn't have come out sooner. It's like, okay. This from someone who might have been commenting about homophobia 20 years ago. It's like, okay, so if you're commenting on rampant homophobia in Australian society 20 years ago, and I'm growing up in that environment, how am I going to feel if, feeling that I'm odd, that I'm different, potentially exploring my sexuality, not really sure about myself? I'm not really going to want to share that with people, and I'm probably going to be ashamed of it, and therefore want to bury it, and not want to confront it, because I don't want that to be true. I don't want to become a target for these bullies at school. It just highlights the lack of awareness of a lot of these casual allies, which is really frustrating, and particularly when they say something to us, it's almost like you want to strangle them or beat them over the head with something. It's like, how can you not get this? You actually realised that there was homophobia and it was a massive problem, but you're not connecting that to how it could potentially impact people. Whether it was me or whether it's other people in my generation. And why, therefore, people would be reluctant to come out or to accept things about themselves. You're sort of halfway there. Now, these guys are allies. So we want to try and educate them and bring them with us because we want them to support us and we want them to, recognise these things need to be changed and we need to continue to make progress. But it is so tiring sometimes to be constantly explaining the same things over and over again. It is particularly if, whatever we've had going on in our day, however we're feeling about ourselves, we get bombarded by this stupid statement like, everything's great for you guys now. Yeah, it's enough to make you want to scream and run out of the room at a bare minimum, let alone potentially strangling someone. But we've got to try and deal with it. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes, the best course of action is to just go, I'm not in the headspace for this discussion right now, and I've got to go. And that might also be dependent on who it is. It could be someone that every time they talk to you, they just seem to bring out the most aggressive side of you. And it might be a matter of, I can't really do this discussion with you. Or, I know this is going to get really fired up, and I'm not in the headspace for that, so I've got to go. Maybe another time I will unpack this for you, because you've got to learn, but, you've got to protect yourself, and part of that is actually knowing when to leave. And it's great coming from me to say that, because I'm not great at it. I will quite often get fired up and get stuck having a conversation. But I've got to learn myself that sometimes it's better for my own mental state to just really take that step and go, no, not today. Of course, probably in an ideal world, we can present them with opportunities to learn. Oh, have you looked at this blog? Have you looked at, Transgender Victoria website? Have you looked at, following a couple of people on social media? These are all avenues for people to learn that aren't necessarily just drawing on us. Oh, have you read this book? Have you looked at a trans history of Australia? Have you looked at any sort of research online to actually understand where we're coming from? Probably the frustrating thing there is when you see someone who really needs to learn and needs to improve their understanding, who just is unwilling to go out and do that on their own. And then it just means all the more that it's up to you. And when it is up to you, you've just got to, it is beneficial to take those steps and try and educate. So, you want to do it, but you've got to look after yourself. And, in some occasions, and, I've spoken about this with some trans friends, sometimes it's even more frustrating these casual allies than people who are blatantly bigoted. Because you're sort of like, you're halfway there, you know something, you've got an investment, you want to help me, you want to support me, why won't you? It's so frustrating sometimes, but, their heart is in the right place. Maybe we just need to give them a push to turn that emotional connection into some sort of action to educate themselves. Because it is to our benefit. We need as many allies as we can. We are a minority. We have a small voice. We're never going to get the change that we need without allies. And it's going to be a very lonely path for us individually, transitioning and affirming our gender if we're going it alone. It's much easier to have support. So for those who do have support and get frustrated with them, I'm completely there with you, but don't lose faith. Just keep trying to slowly educate, because that support is really important and does make a huge difference. So stick with it. Maybe go strangle a soft toy or something. The high Brody has definitely come to some pretty rough treatment of times, but you've just got to stick with it. that's it from me today. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to hear more from Narrative Pro.